For those who don't know, Mr. Ziegler, how goes the battle, sir?
It goes. I agree with you that it takes a lot of kahunas to play those videos right in front of him. It was glorious. And they couldn't go anywhere, right? If you're in that position, what's that? People are always trying to look for a corner. By its essence, the office is an oval. There is no corner to hide in. They couldn't just uh, leave the room, right? And if they did, it'd be very disrespectful. So he had him trapped in a way, and everybody wants to be in the Oval. Even people who hate Trump want to be in the Oval. So it's a good just honeypot in a way that you get them there, and then they're sort of like sitting ducks, and they have to confront it. There's nowhere else to hide. It's sort of like my attorney in this Hunter Biden fiasco. She is suing Pornhub, which is one of the most degenerate companies in the world, now owned by a Canadian. By the way, you
I
probably
think
know that.
I'm fairly certain he's a rabbi as well.
Yeah, it's so degenerate. But the point
Sorry.
is that the point I'm trying to make is that she has finally, after 2.5 years, chased them to the ends of the earth such that they have to sit for a deposition. And now one of their executives is getting deposed today, actually. It's top of mind. That's why I bring it up now. And that same evasiveness, that same desire to get out of just answering questions. I mean, everybody saw that the black guy from South Africa, I don't even know the president's name. Not
Rafa,
that I'm not aware of the situation. I literally cannot care less about what his name is because there's 50 of them just like him. But he had nowhere to go, and he had to he showed everybody how full of shit he was because he can't deny the video.
there's political leaders chanting "Kill the way" and a stadium full of people. Hold on, I made a meme, Garrett. If you will
Let's see it.
entertain
I
me,
love it. I love memes. I,
it was a
I
good one
come
'cause I
off
think
I come off crass or serious, but all my Telegram channel is half of its memes.
well, see, the thing is, it wasn't contextually identical because he didn't have his heart broken in the sense of sadness, but he had his heart ripped out of his ass in front of everybody.
Watch this, Lise. You can actually pinpoint the second when his heart rips in half. And now.
It's pretty good. And by the way, I also
The Simpsons is known for eerily imitating American life on multiple occasions.
it's crazy but they have a lot of episodes and they're astutely observing things, or they were back in the day. Just to
Yeah.
fact check myself, by the way, Garrett. No, I love when this is Grok, by the way. Grok's got to pull its head out of its ass. No, Pornhub is not owned by a rabbi. It is owned by Ethical Capital Partners, a private equity firm. Salman Friedman, a partner and investor in the firm, is an ordained rabbi and serves as the vice president of compliance. However, calling him the sole owner is misleading, as he is one of many partners and investors in the firm that acquired MindGeek, Pornhub's parent company, in 2023. I saw the interview that he did with Patrick Bet-David. He wanted to own a porn company to make it ethical porn. Dude, before we even get into all this, just remind everybody who you are because they might not remember. It's been a while. I'm going to pull something up while you're talking.
Well, I'm grateful for the opportunity, and we could go on the Pornhub and it's really nesting Russian dolls or whatever those things are called, whereby a smaller doll is put inside of a littler doll. Yes, there it is. That's the corporate structure that is Pornhub. And speaking of the dossier, the reason why it took us so long to write this thing, and I urge all your viewers to go and pick one up at bidenreport.com or read it for free, is that it's very conservatively written. So that answer from Grok that you just laid out about how you could have said co-owned, a rabbi co-owns Pornhub, and that would be technically true. And that's what we do in this report. It's footnoted to death, and it's written in such a way where there's no sophistry for them to slide into, right? It's plausible deniability proof. So I think that's very important when you're dealing with these slime balls. Just like the article, because you saw that I joined too. I didn't realize I'd never been in a Rumble studio before. I'd only been in StreamYard. So I clicked join.
No, it's my fault. I should have told you. I forgot.
No, your audience is probably like, hey, does he realize he's on? Unlike Jeffrey Toobin, Dave, I don't do anything weird in my office. It's just me here. So I don't care if I was on, but your viewers might have thought I was weird for that. But, there is going back to the nesting doll analogy. A lot of our time spent, you asked me to introduce myself, is to take apart, that's my 2-year-old in the background, taking apart the Russian nesting dolls. The Biden set up corporate entities like this, and Pornhub has this, whereby it's not one entity, there's 5 of them, and a lot of them are sole subsidiaries. And as an attorney, one of the key strategies is to pierce the corporate veil. And that's essentially what we did with this book, is we pierced the Biden veil. Over 5 years of public life, Joe has set up different platoons. There's his platoon from the Senate days. There's his platoon from Hunter's lobbying clients. And if you do not have a laptop left behind by a family member, it's very hard to pierce that corporate veil. I brought up depositions in the context of my attorney suing on behalf of somebody else, not us. Pornhub. How it takes a lot to pierce a corporate veil. It takes a lot and a lot of money and time to get somebody to set for a deposition. In the same vein, it takes a lot to force the Bidens to answer some questions. So apart from just writing this book to introduce myself, what really pissed off the Bidens, and most people don't know this because it was a civil case in Arkansas, but I was the expert witness for the mother of Hunter's child in 2023. So after I wrote this book, I was contacted by the attorneys for the woman, some people call her a baby mama, who worked at a strip club. She was a bottle server at a strip club. I think she did some stripping too, probably on Hunter. But anyways, her name's London Roberts. And Hunter was trying to decrease the amount of child support that he was paying to the girl in Arkansas. Again, this is Decent Joe's son. Remember, Joe's so decent and empathetic, right? Hasn't even picked up the phone to call his granddaughter. Very decent guy. They were trying to decrease the amount of money that they paid to this Arkansas girl. And the attorneys, who are conservatives, knew that I wrote this book. They contacted me. I was designated. Hunter tried to get me tossed from the case. They totally fell on their face. I was designated as an expert witness, and then that got the ball rolling on the lawfare against us. Once I was designated an expert witness in the Arkansas case, Hunter filed this bullshit suit in the Central District of California, which goes into hacking. Again, David, I couldn't even hack somebody if I tried. I do not have the technical proficiency.
What is the basis of because at the time, I forget when we did this interview. I don't know if you had started facing lawfare.
I first spoke with you in 2023, summer of 2023.
And I said, are you not, I remember saying, like, are you not nervous about getting sued? I don't remember if you had gotten sued just yet, but what's the basis of the lawsuit against you?
Well, to answer your direct question first, I wasn't nervous because I expected to be. Nervousness typically comes from a situation where you're unsure of the outcome. I knew we were going to get sued. The only question was which bullshit cause of action they were going to pick, and they picked one of the dumbest ones. All the statute of limitations are passed now, but the smartest thing, by the way, we didn't do anything wrong, but if I am playing devil's advocate and I am facing me and I'm an adversary of me, one of the people that should have, if they wanted to do lawfare correctly and actually get some meat off the bones, one of Hunter's friends or family members, specifically his widow who he was sleeping with, should have sued every outlet for copyright and private revelation or public revelation of a private fact. Now, those statute of limitations are passed, which is why I'm speaking freely about that, right? But his strategy to sue under hacking was the dumbest thing, because there's clear SCOTUS precedent. This is why the Ninth Circuit is going to reverse the Central District of California decision, because the judge is totally corrupt and should have recused himself. We had a Juan Merchan-like situation where the judge gave money to Hunter's dad, and Hunter's dad gave him his job. This is like good old boy Southern networks. I like the South. Typically, they're conservative, but this is like local court in Alabama where somebody's daddy is the judge and one of the attorneys has a daddy who knew the judge. And it's just all good old boy network. We have a La Raza judge named Hernan Diego Vera in the hacking case with Hunter, who was given his job by the plaintiff's father, we kindly asked him to recuse himself, and he wouldn't recuse himself. He wanted this case. So what they did was forum shopped. They wanted to sue us because they were mad that I was labeled an expert witness, and we put the book out for free. Over 10 million people have viewed this report, bidenreport.com. And I've been sending it to everybody. Everybody who is bold. Like, I didn't send a copy to Jake Tapper because he is a shill, but I did send a copy to Alex Thompson. In terms of the redeemability scale, David.
Who's Alex Thompson?
Alex Thompson's the co-author. So they put Jake Tapper's name on the book to sell more copies because he's more well-known. But about 85% of the work was done by Alex Thompson. Alex Thompson is not somebody that I ideologically agree with, but at least he tries and he does call people before publishing stuff. So I sent him a copy. And I sent you copies. Anybody who will touch these topics, I've sent copies of the book to. And that's what really pissed him off is I don't want to say democratize because that word is overused. And
you mass produced, made accessible.
Disseminated the data. We haven't charged a single cent for anybody to view the contents from the laptop. Think about the right in the United States.
I don't want to open it because opening it. My wife stumbled across it. She didn't know what it was at first.
Yeah, I would keep it in the office, and there is a disclaimer at the beginning. It's for an adult readership only.
What does it cost? What does it cost to print up one?
That's a very good question.
I would say it's got to be $25 hard cost.
Yes, because it was even more than that at the beginning, but now we found a conservative printer to do it for less. Thank goodness. But yeah, it's 644 pages, double-sided, colored pictures. And you're right. I'll show a picture that is even fit for 12-year-olds. So this is a picture of screenshots of text messages, right? Everybody knows what this is. Everybody's seen these. Everybody who has an iPhone has seen these. What we do is we don't just, like, for instance, Miranda Devine, she wrote 2 phenomenal books. She's a much better writer.
I just realized what you did, Garrett. You put his bad teeth over his genitals.
That's one of the few things I can take credit for. There's no genitalia in the report. In fact, one of Hunter's causes of action, David, is that he sued us for data modification under the California fraud statute. And the only way he said we modified his data was we covered up his own genitalia. So according to Hunter's own attorneys,
they wanted it naked.
Their client be butt naked in our book.
Yeah, then they would have gone with another cause of action.
It is laughable. It is shame-inducing in any normal, moral human being. They would be, the lawyers, the attorneys would be shameful for putting their name on this. The lawsuit was a joke. So, but going back to Miranda, she's a very good writer, but what our project is, what the Marco Polo project is putting the primary source material out there and then explaining it. So the exhibits drive the report. These are the exhibits directly from the laptop, screenshotted them. I took 18 months to do this thing. Half my time was transferring high-resolution PNG screenshots to a thumb drive and then putting them on my own Mac and putting them in the document, right? This is tedious stuff, 2,000 footnotes. And we put the email database out there and the photo database because nobody on the right would do it. Like, we want to be a very small, Americanized version of WikiLeaks. And another thing that pissed him off beyond just the expert witness, because I'm trying to give a background of what we've done, is we received from inside JP Morgan suspicious activity reports. So you've heard about SARS. The Congress made a big deal about SARS, and rightfully so. Before the Congress even got those SARS through subpoena, though, an anti-money laundering executive within JP Morgan leaked the internal screenshots of the suspicious activity reports about Hunter. And we were floored. First of all, I thought it was a Fed. So I had the PI on our board run everything about him. And sure as shit, he is an executive at JP Morgan. And we were tickled pink. So we bought BidenSARS.com for $7. Your viewers can go there. And we put the 5 SARS that we got, which show account numbers, dates of birth, amounts, timestamps for payments that the U.S. president's family received and made to Ukrainian oligarchs, and pimps and prostitutes. Straight up primary source material. Meaning, even if you hate me, even if you hate Trump, and I love Trump personally. I didn't go to Doonbeg, but a buddy brought this back when he went to Scotland with him. Even if you hate Trump, you cannot argue with the primary source material. And one of the people that's really liked our book, another person who I sent this book to out of the blue, didn't ask for it, but his name's David Garrow, and he's a Pulitzer Prize winning biographer. His Pulitzer was for the MLK biography, but he wrote a 1,700-page book called Rising Star about Barack Obama. I have it here on my desk. I sent David Garrow a book. He lives in Pittsburgh, and he writes back and says, this thing's incredible. And he named our book in The Spectator, the UK magazine, oldest English-speaking magazine in the world, the 2023 book of the year. A liberal biographer of Obama and MLK said this book was the 2023 book of the year. And I'm not bragging. I'm saying we even put an article about this because I was so grateful that he recognized that this is primary source material. He spent 6 months on the south side of Chicago doing basic research about Obama and his nonprofit entities, because when Obama ran in 2008, not a single reporter even tried to talk to any of Obama's girlfriends or do anything about him. They didn't do any research. And that's pathetic. And so we did do the background research for Hunter and Joe. It's all about Joe. Hunter's only important because of who his dad is. We're not interested in Hunter per se. We're interested in Joe. So we did this background research. They sue us under a criminal statute, 18 USC 1030, which is the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. And it's a serious statute, passed in 1984. And what they were trying to do was use alchemy in the legal system by saying that we hacked Hunter's data. Well, as an attorney, data and a computer are different things. The statute doesn't say data. There's a California state statute that does. And that would have been a trickier one to fight.
Are they suing you for... I'm trying to figure out, is this in criminal court or is this in civil court for damages? So damages,
yes.
Damages resulting from allegedly criminal activity.
Precisely. So the CFAA, Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, passed in 1984, codified at 18 USC 1030. It does have a private right of action, a legitimate one, if the case is legitimate. What they were doing was they went forum shopping. They said, where's the most left-wing district? Ziegler resides in Illinois. ICU LLC is our nonprofit entity. Yes, LLCs can be nonprofits. You can look up IRS regs. But our LLC was domiciled in Wyoming, so they had diversity jurisdiction according to their own theory. And they said, which federal court is the most left-wing and favorable to Hunter? Central District of California, beyond the SDNY. But they knew that Joe had just appointed a slate of people to the Central District of California. And one of the hoaxes that you know as well as me is that this random assignment crap is not random at all.
And we've talked. I mean, it's not random. Boasberg gets the same cases. Mershon gets the cases. How Engeron gets a commercial case when he's never been a commercial or not bankruptcy. It was it's a commercial case. No, it's randomly selected to the most vitriolically partisan judge they can get because they know how the system works. Someone in the chat asked for me to show up here. I can't. This thing looks like when you go to Vegas and they flick out those cards and they got like little black squares or stars over the nipples. Like, I can't show you anything in this, people.
There is, yes, I should say that we redact very little. So to all your viewers, it is an adult-only book. I wouldn't put it out where kids can see. But technically speaking, there are no nipples and there are no other pieces of genitalia. Now, we don't cover all skin. So yes, a side of Hunter's butt cheek is showing, but there are no anuses, there are no genitalia. And remember, when we're using this language and accurately describing the conduct captured in his son's laptop, remember, this is, according to Joe, the smartest man he knows from a pure intellectual capacity. And this is the son of a man who Maureen Dowd and Jake Tapper, still to this day, Jake Tapper will say, Joe is a decent man. This is a guy who's raised complete degenerates. It's like the kids were raised by wolves.
Well, I genuinely believe they were raised by something of an animal because I believe the daughter was, like she said in her diary, I believe that she was molested.
Yes.
And I believe that something had to have I mean, you can do everything right, a kid still falls on drugs, or you can do everything wrong, and then the kid still grows up to be a Nobel Prize winner. But you're playing with odds, and
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, I don't want to paint the idea that everybody who gets parents generally, from a moral perspective, according to my moral code, cannot be held liable or responsible for everything their child does. That's clear, right? Foundation of Western law is that the person who committed the act has to answer for the act. In the same vein, we can deduce patterns. So if it were just Hunter and not Ashley, they could make that argument. They would have that in the Biden family phraseology, plausible deniability. But if it's Ashley and Hunter, and they have different mothers, Hunter's mother was Nelia, she died in the wreck. Ashley's mother was Jill. If they have different mothers, the only thing that's tied together is Joe. And both of them become totally degenerate, helpless drug addicts.
Well, and the mere admission in her book, like I still, I've known kids that turned to drugs, and the parents, as far as I know, did everything right or didn't do specific things wrong. But to put out the diary, I mean, my running theory is that both Hunter and Ashley were deliberately trying to take down Joe Biden out of revenge, because they deep in their hearts hate him for the abuse, and yet Joe's entourage managed to successfully thwart every attempt. You don't forget your computer at a laptop store. You don't leave your diary at a halfway home unless you're trying to take down your father. And the comedy gold of this is the Biden regime comes in and foils their attempts to bring down Joe Biden. That's how corrupt it is. And Joe Biden, but not Joe, but the Hunter probably got threatened into silence at the end of it because he was going to go to jail otherwise. But
well, there's so much to say about that. I can't peer into Hunter's soul. I've tried. I've read 128,000 of his emails. I do think there's that cognitive dissonance. In the one way, he's resentful to Joe for prostituting him. Joe prostituted his son. There were many sleazy people to make money from in Washington. Joe could have selected any sleazy lobbyist to pull in money for him. He chose his son. That's what kind of soul Joe has. He prostituted his own son. You hear those stories on television. Somebody sells their kid for sex. That's essentially what Joe did for money. It's despicable. It's one of the worst acts a parent can do. In that way, Hunter resents him. And we see that in text messages. And to his daughter, Naomi, who just made news the other day saying that the hit pieces were all fake. Of course they weren't. Naomi was mad because of the book. But Hunter's complaining to Naomi. He said, don't worry. Unlike Pop, I'm not going to make you give me half your salary for 30 years. Mm-hmm. So there's resentment there. But I think Hunter's also aware that if he doesn't have Joe as his father, he's in federal prison. Hunter would have went to a year of federal prison when he was 18 years old because he got busted on the boardwalk in New Jersey after his high school graduation with a dime bag, not unlike the dime bag that was found at the White House 30 years later. So Hunter has been skating his whole life because of Joe, but he also resents Joe for pimping him out in a business way. That is psychologically, and I consider myself sort of a right-wing sociologist. To a right-wing sociologist, this is fodder. This is stuff that novels will be written about. If you didn't have the laptop, somebody would have wrote a novel about Hunter, but we have the laptop, so we don't have to resort to a novel.
When I look at their family, I think of the last scene of Magnolia with the father and the
I need to watch that.
You've never seen
Magnolia?
Is it? Oh, it's like 99, I think. P.T. Anderson. Yes, P.T. Anderson. So I won't ruin it. The last scene when I was just about to ruin it.
You can ruin it. It's fine.
No. It's a beautiful.
What's the genre?
Have you seen Boogie Nights?
No.
It's a series of intertwining tales, great music, great acting, John C. Reilly. It's, as far as I'm concerned, Tom Cruise's best performance.
Oh, so the timeline, it's like a Nolan film in that it's not chronological?
It's it's chronological, but it's like a bunch of overlapping separate stories, sort of like Pulp Fiction-esque, but this one's a drama of...
I love cinema, so you have
it's a 3-hour movie. You'll absolutely love it, especially given what you'll understand was my reference to Joe Biden, all of this in the last scene. But so actually, the video you put out yesterday, which is how I remember to get back in touch with you, you're still being sued. You're still in the court system. How many lawsuits are you currently facing?
2.
Okay.
They wrote to 5 different government entities to get us investigated, from the Inspector General of the Treasury Department to the Delaware Attorney General, to the Attorney General of the United States, all naming me specifically, and amongst a group of people, the shop owner, Rudy, a couple of other people, Bob Costello. They asked multiple government agencies to investigate us, and they did investigate us. Marco Polo is under an active DOJ criminal investigation for doxing, which is ridiculous. But the civil cases are twofold. The case with Hunter, that one was dismissed with prejudice because we issued a deposition notice on a sugar brother. This whole thing that Hunter doesn't have money, that's all a lie. That's all. Yes, he doesn't have money in his bank account, but that's never been the issue with Hunter. It's about access to funds, and Hunter has access to funds through that sugar brother. But we were going to depose that sugar brother, so he dismissed the case. His dismissal ex parte motion, David, should have never been granted. That judge is thoroughly corrupt. We actually opposed it because we wanted to condition dismissal on reimbursement of attorney's fees. So we didn't get those at the district court level, even though it was a frivolous suit. And the plaintiff ex parte motioned for a dismissal. We got it with prejudice. The judge did one honorable thing. He threw us a bone and gave it to us with prejudice. So now we're going to the Ninth Circuit. That's the federal case.
You're going to the Ninth Circuit on the legal fees aspect.
On the legal fees, yeah, because it was totally without foundation. It was a hacking suit.
What were your legal fees that you incurred up until the point of dismissal?
Just this case alone was $250,000.
Okay.
And then there's another sister case brought by that same sugar brother. And by the way, these two cases, same attorneys. It's a Rule 11 RICO. We're being sued by the same attorneys in different jurisdictions. So you got Hunter in the federal case, Central District of California, Second World Justice, as I said in that video last night. I compared it to Bulgaria because like you said about the ownership of ethical capital partners, you have to be very precise. I'm not saying California is third world. I'm saying California is second world in that the state court system is an even more of a Wild West. So the sugar brother, Kevin Morris, the guy who, according to the IRS whistleblowers, was not allowed to be interviewed by the DOJ because he was protected by the CIA. That's who's suing me, an alleged CIA asset. Kevin Morris was the attorney for the South Park creators, and he made a good amount of coin through that. We think his net worth between $100 to $150 million.
This guy here.
He looks like the Geico caveman, which is actually a part of our lawsuit. He's so brittle. He has such a thin skin made of glass that he put a meme of himself that a viewer of ours made. I did not make this. I can't even make memes. All I can do is write and research and write footnotes, right? I'm very tedious. I can't even make a meme. He complained about a meme that a third party posted to our channel of him as the Geico caveman. This is how pathetic this is. The guy has over $100 million, and he sued us for intentional infliction of emotional distress. And guess what, David? And harassment. I've never been around him. The only time I've ever been in person with this guy is in a federal courtroom for the trial of Hunter Biden, where his wife came up and spit on me and called me a effing Nazi. This is clown world. So he's suing us in the state court in California.
This is him right here.
Yes, the guy who looks like a Geico caveman.
Yeah, he looks substantially worse. He kind of looks like Nick Nolte.
This has aged him 15 years. He should have. My former friend who catfished him and posed as a left-wing hacktivist started this lawsuit. Kevin Morris, to this day, is still lying to the court, saying that I was the one who catfished him. I didn't. And he knows it wasn't me. That's why he won't submit the phone number to the court. So he submitted a lawsuit saying that I harassed him and impersonated him. And in the lawsuit, David, he never put the phone number because any two-bit private investigator can run a number. Just like you and I were discussing that crazy guy from Toronto who's a gnat around your head, any two-bit PI can locate somebody if they have one of those indicators, a phone number, an email address, a date of birth, right? So he won't submit to the court the phone number that was texting him. So he's saying that I impersonated him when it was a former friend of mine who then sent me the text messages because my former friend who was very sharp, and we've sort of had a falling out over this, for another reason, not related to this. But he was very sharp. He's a very, very, very intelligent guy. He elicited a ton of information from Kevin Morris, this sugar brother.
But don't you get to submit a motion? We call it a motion for particulars, a motion for.
We did all of that, and we partially won at the trial court level.
Like if you omit key information or you're vague on details, and as a defendant you need that information for a proper defense, you say motion for particulars. What's the cell number?
Yes, that's why I call it second world, right? I mean, it's not third world like China, like it's not a third world court system, but it's full on second world. So we partially won at the trial court level on 5 causes of action. We won on the doxing claim. We didn't dox him. There's no private right of action in California.
Skip all the details, because if it survives on one cause of action, you're still stuck in court. So it survived on some elements, so you get some dismissed, but you still are facing the lawsuit.
We're still facing both of them because both of them are in the appellate courts now. Okay. That's the short answer. Hunter's is in the federal. Kevin's is in the state court appellate system. Both have cost us $250,000. That's why I tweeted out the legal defense fund last night.
Give me the address again for that, and I'll bring it up.
Very simple. MarcoPoloLegalFund.com. Very simple. MarcoPoloLegalFund.com. LegalFund.com. And that will have the link to our website where you can find all the dockets. Everything from the Hunter case, by the way, is on Court Listener. Everything on the Morris case we've posted on our Telegram page. I wish that that Twitter would allow PDFs. I've been messaging the internal premium folks. You've got to allow PDFs. I really like PDFs.
Yeah, but they kill links anyhow. So I mean, they'll allow
That's
it.
True.
It will get no traction. I'll pin that up afterwards. But I just shared it.
Thank you very much. So there's the state court case with Morris that is set for oral argument this summer. And there's the federal court case with Hunter. And all we're seeking is reimbursement. We're not litigious people, okay? Unlike what they paint me in these complaints as an ogre, man. They call me a woman hater, a racist, a bigot. It's all gross. I'm none of those things. If I were, I would try to take Kevin Morris's mansion. I'm not. All I want is my legal bills reimbursed so that we can move on to other research subjects. That's our goal. So, because we've done a lot. The first time I spoke with you was about Engeron. We tracked down that ridiculous string of photos he took of his naked body.
I forgot that it was you that actually broke that at the time. His
and then we found the name. Page. We ran through facial recognition the name of that HHS contractor who said, "If you effing do that to me again, I'm going to remember you personally." Remember that poll worker from the GOP in Arlington?
I won't remember the person's name.
Brendan Martin. And that was another time. I think I've been on your program 3 times to talk about Engeron, to talk about the poll worker, and to talk about our book. And so we do a lot of different stories. Another story we helped popularize, we didn't break this one. I can't take credit for breaking it initially. But the sheriff in Fulton County, Fat Fanny was just ordered to pay 55 G's to Ashley Merchant. The sheriff who was dead set on mugshotting Trump starred in a softcore gay porno in 2005. His name's Pat Labat, and he was the bottom. We saw the softcore porno. Pat Labat is the bottom. And 2 days after this news broke, his wife filed for divorce, and then she revoked it. We're still trying. We're in a FOIA dispute with the county to get a previously public filed divorce document. But the sheriff of Fulton County, we said something cute in our article on Substack about it. We said that Pat Labat has a love for the visual, which is why he required Donald Trump to sit for a mugshot. The mugshot that has now has now been seen around the world.
It's become iconic.
Yeah, they were wanting to make fun of him and mugshot him like every other Tom, Dick, and Harry who gets a DUI. And Trump, of course, went in his signature navy blue with red tie with his Brioni suit. And it was an iconic photo. But Pat Labat, this is a softcore porno dude. This is an absolute joke. You got Fat Fanny, who's boinking the prosecutor, and the sheriff, who's a gay porno guy. And again, say nothing about the morality of homosexuality, which I personally detest, but nevertheless, it's legal, right? Just say nothing about that. It's the irony that we're into, man. It's not to say, hey.
You scratch the surface on any of them, and they are corrupt to the like every single one of Fannie Willis, Labat, Leticia James, Engeron, Merchant. I mean, Boasberg. We haven't really. No, Boasberg. He does have some family corruption as well with his dog. Every single one of them. For all of my foibles, the one thing I can safely say is, I'm so like. I feel clean. I feel like I might not have been living life to the fullest because I don't have any of this crap. I'm like pretty damn normal despite the abnormalities.
No,
But
most
it's
people
wild.
don't. Most people don't. A couple of our researchers asked me, Garrett, what do you have on me? It's like, we're not in the dirt business. The word opposition research has been sullied. That's in our tagline. We don't work for parties. So we're not like Fusion. That's one thing that separates us from Fusion GPS. Fusion was a private entity that worked with Perkins Coie, as you know, and the DNC. We don't do that. We're strictly
also,
C3.
They also made the stuff, or
Yeah.
they have the stuff made
Yeah.
up. So if they can't find it, they'll make it up.
Yeah, we don't do that because that's immoral. You cannot bear false witness against your neighbor. That's a very basic commandment. That's why Hunter, stupid as they are and grasping at straws, never even brought up the word defamation with us because we're so conservative in our pronouncements. Like Jake Tapper yesterday. Jake Tapper is a shill, as we know, and a liar and a book merchant now. He was very surgical in his statement about Hunter. Hunter Biden cheated on his wife with his brother's widow and then got the widow addicted to crack cocaine. That is a very antiseptic statement. And Joe approved of it, by the way. Joe gave an approving quote to Vanity Fair in Page 6 in March of 2017. I memorized it. Jill and I are very happy that Hunter and Hallie found each other in such a difficult time. This was while he was married to Kathleen. So Joe approved of the affair with his brother's widow. And the reason why I bring up Jake's statement is because Hunter has no actionable defamation claim because there's no foreplay to it. It's matter of fact. It has been proven at trial in the District of Delaware that the president, who he called the smartest man he knows, had an affair with his brother's widow and got the widow addicted to crack. That is reality. Whether or not the sugar brother caveman wants to accept reality, you and I live in reality. Reality is not always pleasant, right? We all have bills, etc. Legal bills. That's where my mind is. We all have bills and other things that pull on us. What separates us, though, from these lizards is that they cannot accept reality. That is a place where dialogue breaks down. So there's this quote I found a couple months ago. It's now become my favorite quote ever. It was said in 1762. Can I read it to you real quick?
Please.
I'm obsessed with this quote because usually you don't come across something that describes the inner neurons in your brain so completely from the outside. Usually each person's forced to come up and articulate their own thoughts over the course of, days and months and weeks and whatever. But this is from George Christoph Lichtenberg this is the quotes from 1766. He said, "I ceased in the year 1764 to believe that one can convince one's opponents with arguments printed in books. It is not my purpose to do that, therefore, that I have taken up my pen. But my purpose is merely so to annoy them and to bestow strength and courage on those on our own side and to make it known to their side that they have not convinced us."
Well,
So
what's amazing is
I'll send you that quote.
Well, it's like the 1700 version of what I say about why I argue with trolls on Twitter. It's not to convince them. It's on the one hand to reach any reasonable person in the middle who might come across it, because you are dealing with people who are of bad faith. They will never be swayed because they're dishonest, but there might be honest people listening.
Yes, and it will give them, that's a great point, and it's something that quote doesn't touch on. It gives them ammunition, people on our side. How do you know?
No,
One of-
the arguments to raise when someone says white genocide in South Africa is a lie. That those crosses are not all for white farmers. Okay, 87. Like they'll have that ammunition, but I don't expect to convince what I said, not the ACLU, the SPLC. I don't expect to
SPLC,
convince
yeah,
them.
that's an awful one.
But Garrett, the one thing actually, was something you mentioned in your video yesterday is it's relevant to Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis or alleged cancer diagnosis, because I think I'll be proven right in the long term. In the Hunter book, but someone else also in our locals community said, "Can I get it on?" I was going to say Tinder. Can I get it on Kindle? I'll do it now. Is it available?
The PDF is free. I'll do you one better. You can download the PDF for free at BidenReport.com if you want the physical copy. So Kindle, no. PDF, yes. And the reason why,
BidenReport.com, and I'll give it to everybody right now.
yes.
I think somebody had accused you of trying to market this. I think you should market it harder. But here's the link for everybody, free on the interweb.
We can market it for one reason, which is we're C3 and there is no publisher. We had to self-publish. Even Post Hill Press wouldn't touch this thing. So that means that there is no middleman and it supports the nonprofit. All book sales go to the entity. They don't go to me personally. That's why Garrett Ziegler's not on the side of the book or the cover of the book, right? It was published by a nonprofit, and the nonprofit owns the intellectual property, not me personally. So
Because yesterday you mentioned dementia, where Hunter was talking about
555, yes.
Because that's where I say, like, all right, I don't believe he has cancer. I believe he has dementia, but cancer is the easy way out. And Hunter knew. I can show these pages here. Check this out. Let's see if I can get this here.
Yes,
like that, and I'll read it. It says, Hunter knew that Joe had dementia and urged him to run for president anyway. Hunter's former psychiatrist, who had postulated in 2012 that Joe had dementia after Joe's vice presidential debate performance, brought up his mental condition in two separate iMessages. Hunter wanted to bring on Joe as, quote, our first guest, end quote, to a podcast the two were planning. But his partner asked, does he recall details, though? Oh, because with all the dementia and all. Hunter responded, not much these days, but since it's all fake news anyway, so I don't see the problem. The following month, Hunter again acknowledged Joe's impaired mental state. This is 2012.
No. This text message is occurring in 2019, but the psychiatrist was the first one to say that he had dementia early onset, not advanced, in 2012 after his debate with Paul Ryan.
So Hunter, there couldn't be anyone more inside than Hunter, is saying in 2019 his dad has dementia.
January 1st, 2019, yes. And what's incredible is instead of telling the public the truth, the psychiatrist, who is on the right politically, it's weird how Hunter even went to him, but considering he publicly stated that Joe had early onset dementia in 2012, you'd think that Hunter would have went to a different psychiatrist. But this guy named Keith Ablow, who has since lost his medical license, he's no longer a psychiatrist, can't be called one. He got mad at us for putting this in our book and lied about me on Tucker. So, of course, I chewed him a new a-hole and said, hey, man, like, first of all, this is all primary sources. There is no interpretation. We are literally quoting from text messages between Keith Ablow, and guess what? We know Keith Ablow's motive. Because he urged Joe to run for president. Keith Ablow, January 6, 2019, I want to be Surgeon General. Keith Ablow lost his medical license, but he was so he didn't like Joe personally. I don't believe. I think Keith Ablow probably voted for Trump, but he did want to maintain that relationship with Hunter.
Do you know what's amazing? I was going to say, why would they use him and know that he would be an ally? And I was going to make a joke about them having dirt on him. And the first article I pull up to why he lost his license refers to sexual misconduct accusations. So he might have been.
He had a little bit of Keith Raniere in him, David. He had a couple of patients. He asked a couple of patients and even got one of them to tattoo his initials by their genitalia. And he was into masochism and sadism and would have sex with his own patients and use belts and whip them. This is Keith Ablow. This, by the way, not my opinion. You know where I'm getting this? The Medical Board of Massachusetts. They issued a emergency injunction and said this guy keeping his medical license would, quote, be a danger to the health and citizens of the state of Massachusetts. Keith Ablow was raided by the DEA in February of 2020 and was never charged. And by the way, Hunter left another laptop, not the one we used to write this book. Hunter left another laptop with Keith Ablow that was taken in the DEA raid and was then shipped back to Hunter's attorneys. So not only did the FBI, this is another angle, of course, it's in our book if anybody reads it all, but another angle that isn't talked about that much is the FBI covered for the laptop that was dropped off at JP McIsaac's shop. Yes, everybody knows that. But what they don't talk about often is that the DEA also covered for Hunter because they took another one of his laptops, which was inside Keith Ablow's safe when Keith Ablow was raided by the DEA. Now, why Hunter left it there, I just think he had so many laptops. That's something that only Keith can answer. But I do know for a fact, because it came out later in transcripts, that the laptop was taken by the DEA, then sent back to Hunter's attorney in Chicago named George Maciris. But yeah, Keith Ablow shoots the messenger, literally, on Tucker Carlson's program. So I was furious because after that, Tucker rescinded his invitation to me. Tucker was going to have me on. Then he listens to this lying nincompoop, degenerate pervert, Keith Ablow, who is boinking his patients. By the way, if somebody were to marry and thereby, have a sexual relationship with one of their patients, in 1 out of the 100 cases, it could be morally okay if it's not a mental health practitioner. Let's say it's an orthopedic surgeon and somebody needs a hip replaced and they become married and she was his patient at one time. That's okay. You would grant that, right? Keith Ablow was a psychiatrist dealing with very vulnerable people who were depressed, people who were on psychotic medications. Keith Ablow became famous or infamous for injecting his patients with ketamine. There's a picture of Hunter, which is, by the way, a horse tranquilizer, and it has some medicinal qualities with regard to depression. I'm into this stuff. I read stuff. I read a lot, but one thing I'm interested in is cures for depression. But ketamine has been proven that it can help some patients, but it didn't help Hunter. But still, there's a picture of Hunter with this big IV in his arm. It's in our book. And that's where he was in Keith Ablow's clinic there. So what Keith Ablow would do, again, according to the Massachusetts Board of Psychiatry, or the medical board, what he would get these women on ketamine and get them addicted and basically help tranquilize them and then have sex with them. It was a degeneracy that Svengali, or however the hell you say his name, it's that bad. So again, I am disgusted with about 95% of the people in this book. It is a cornucopia of human sin. I'm not Catholic, but I do borrow one of their concepts, which is the 7 deadly sins. If any of your viewers believe that there is such a thing as 7 deadly sins, or that there is sin, which I believe there is, they need to read this book. It is like I said, a cornucopia of human sin.
It's I mean, I'd say it is biblical level degeneracy where
Old Testament like.
Yeah, this is the type of stuff that, nations get wiped off the face of the earth for.
Sodom and Gomorrah level.
Yeah, that was where I was going to go with it, but there might be more of a political angle that I don't necessarily mean to.
Nineveh? Where did Jonah go? Jonah went to Nineveh.
It's degeneracy beyond. It's abject degeneracy that you see in movies like Trainspotting. Is basic. Except even in Trainspotting, yeah, there was underage fornication in that movie. There was no assault, sexual. Man, it's wild, Garrett.
Well, going back to the dementia, like you said, don't take your viewers should not take my word for it. Go and read Hunter's own text messages. And in that video that you responded to last night on X, we tagged Keith Ablow. We tag all these people. Isn't that kind of funny? We tag Engeron's wife. They have the floor, man. I'm not an ogre. You want to present, one of our mottos for our group, we have an Old Testament motto and a New Testament motto. The Old Testament motto comes from Isaiah 1. And in it says, "Come, let us reason together." Right? I'm not being cheesy, but I always get goosebumps when I hear that verse because that is what the goal is. X and other platforms like it, Rumble, when they are at their best, they will fulfill Isaiah 1 because they will let human beings who are not animals, who have souls, come and reason together. If anybody, including the degenerate Keith Ablow, wants to present counterfactuals, he is free to do so. Engeron, free to do so. Hernan Vera, free to do so. Hunter Biden has not presented one single instance, David, that I've ever lied about him. Not a single one. I don't want to lie about Hunter. That's immoral. That's mean. That's not good, right? If somebody lies about me like Keith Ablow, I'm going to jump down his throat. I don't want to lie about people. If there is an excuse for why Hunter Biden was paid $3 million by a Ukrainian energy oligarch, that doesn't mean that he was a FARA violating money launderer, I'm open to hearing it. But there's not been a single theory. Even I watch trials all day long. I'm a trial junkie. I have Court TV and Law and Crime. I'm obsessed with it. I am obsessed with the American, and other countries have this too, but the burden being on the prosecution, right? They have the burden of proof. I love this. It makes me get goosebumps. I love that the defense doesn't have to prove anything. You don't even have to talk in the United States. I love that. But in this case with Hunter, even though he's not being criminally charged, he is civilly putting forth these ridiculous suits against me. He sued Rudy. He sued Fox News. He sued Patrick Byrne. He sued the IRS. Sorry. That's my father. He always calls me right in the middle of interviews. I love Mike, but he calls me right in the middle of interviews. So he has never put forward any way in which anything that we're saying here today, David, is false. And to me, that's nuts. Meaning either put up or shut up. If everything we're saying is true, which it is, but just Hunter, if everything we're saying about you is true, shut up. We don't want to hear you. We don't want you to go on a counteroffensive, suing people, right? You should just say, you know what? By the way, they're not even smart from a legal perspective. I love that you're an attorney because we could talk about these things, about the copyright cause of action and the public revelation of a private fact. All your viewers should go look up the state level statutes of public revelation of a private fact. It's an interesting one. I don't think it's constitutional, but it is on the books.
Yeah, they call it. It's not defamation because it's not false. It's public disclosure of a private fact which has no public relevance, and that is typically, I mean, it's not extortively done, but it's done to humiliate or embarrass, even if it's true.
Yes, and you're much more articulate than me. I know that statute, right? I go over this, meaning everything we publish, is there a public nexus to it? Like Engeron. If Engeron wasn't a judge, could Marco Polo be sued for publishing obviously degenerate, stupid things of him? Perhaps. But this guy presided over a $450 million judgment against the 47th president of the United States of America. There's totally a public interest in this. Joe, the president of the United States, told us that his son did nothing wrong. He said this on cable television. My son, remember this interview? My son is a good son. He said he's a good boy. He's a good boy. One of my favorite jokes came from Politizoid. You should look this up. If you can pull, can you pull his YouTube channel up? Politizoid. He doesn't know me from Adam. I sent him a copy of the book, but he never responded to me. That's fine. He didn't need to, but because I appreciated his work and I would have sent it to him regardless. But his pseudonym is Politizoid, and he's a former executive at Disney. He puts amazing work together. This guy is one of the best animators in the United States of America. And he created a whole series of Joe videos, like 20 of them, called JoeBot. And one of my favorite lines from this, and Politizoid drafted the whole thing, animated the whole thing. One of my favorite lines is, "Can you just lay off the president's children? I mean, my God, the boy is only 52." I mean, because that's how Joe talks. He's a good boy. My boy, he's a good boy. He's 52 years old. Hunter just turned 55 in February. When Politizoid made the video, he was 52. But I've downloaded all the Politizoid videos. It's brilliant stuff. It'll be looked at in 100 years as some of the best satire. One thing I collect is old political cartoons. The Politizoid videos in 100 years will be studied. They're brilliant. They're hilarious. They're intelligent. And talking about accepting reality, why didn't they just say, Hunter was on drugs. He was degenerate. We apologize for everything. He's going to be doing his doodles in Montana, and he's going to be putting the funds up for the Boy Scouts. Why couldn't they do that, David? That would have been, even from a crisis PR spin doctor perspective, that would have been better for him. They should have hired... Their own spin doctors aren't even good. Whoever told them in the PR world to do all these lawsuits against independent writers was ridiculous. It got people even more mad at them. They should have just apologized. Hunter should have lived in a Montana cabin for the last 4 years and donated his art to charity. What do? They put him in a seaside estate in Malibu with a bong-smoking sugar brother and sell his paintings to anonymous buyers for $100,000.
It's the ultimate flex of them being able to get away with egregious known corruption, and they don't even have to apologize for it.
Well, that's what our cases are about. If they can't apologize, if they don't have it in their soul to apologize, the least we can do is have them reimburse us. And Kevin, by the way, from a timetable perspective, our appellate decision could come as soon as September with Kevin, in which he might be liable for $250,000 back to the Marco Polo Research Group, 501c3. And I hope that I'm on your program before then. But if I'm not, have me on back then and we can celebrate the $250,000 that the Sugar Brother is going to have to pay to us.
1,000%. One question that I know everybody's asking, which out of the blue, but not so much out of the blue, the Epstein stuff. Have you dived deep into the Epstein stuff?
But our Twitter account's weird. Everybody should go check it out. Marco Polo 501c3. We only post if we have something new to add. We are a news agency, yes, but it's like a news agency that publishes once a week. It's like a weekly program or every 72-hour program. We don't do something every day. We only contribute when we have something new. So, for example, we were the first group to dig into Bruce Reinhart. You know Bruce Reinhart, the magistrate judge, and we can talk about that too. Magistrate judges need to be abolished. But Bruce Reinhart was a magistrate judge who signed off on the warrant and raid of Mar-a-Lago. It was totally illegal. Bruce Reinhart represented one of Epstein's closest assistants, Sarah Kellen. You probably know this. We were the first group to find that. First thing I did when I found the public warrant on Breitbart, I looked at the Scrib doc and found the two agents, made profiles on them before noon. Looked at the magistrate judge, looked at court listener, and sure as shit, he represented Epstein's lieutenant, Sarah Kellen. So our interest in the Epstein case is narrowly tailored to topics that we think are not being delved into. Technofog has done some great work on Epstein. I love that guy, lawyer from Texas or Oklahoma. Our angle, though, is trying to find something that has been not written about to what we think its potential should be. And, as a primary source lover, we got to find somebody within the government who will righteously leak the client list, because Bondi has proven herself to be incapable of doing this. And so the normal channels of disclosure that you would normally think of if President Trump is in power, and I did work, President Trump wasn't my direct boss. He was my boss's boss. I worked in the White House from 2019 to 2021 for a gentleman named Peter Navarro, who's back in his same position gloriously, and who got persecuted even more than me on a criminal basis, lawfare. They went after both of us.
He went to jail. I think it was 4 months.
Insanity, yes, down at FCI Miami, the only misdemeanor in FCI Miami. But we have to get to the bottom of the Epstein thing, and the only way we're going to do that, in my opinion, is to get somebody on the inside to leak some of the case materials. I'm very interested in that, and I'm very interested in the Wiener laptop. Because there's a bunch of what I lovingly call Q-tards who talk about these things, okay? And I'm somewhat hated by a couple of Q-tards because I don't delve into...
Q-tards, you're going to get hated, but yeah.
By the way, most of these Q-tards are great people. I don't say they're bad people. They're like patriotic people. I say that almost in jest, right? mean, I'm not condemning them to hell. I'm not saying they're
No,
stupid.
but I've had a number who I suspect would be Q-ish telling me that Ashley Babbitt's not actually dead, and I'm like, okay, I don't entertain that theory. I don't judge you. I mean, I question some judgment as a result of it, but don't
Yes.
judge your right to feel that way.
Yeah, I'm not saying they should be banned. I'm just saying that we have to live in reality, and the reality is that Jeffrey Epstein, according to primary source witnesses and other documents, had a trove of compromat. And until we get a hold of that underlying compromat, and we don't just have to settle for deposition transcripts from a civil case between Giuffre and Maxwell, which is principally where a lot of this is coming from, it's speculation. So Bondi apparently is not willing to do this. And again, would love to be proven wrong. I'm just looking at it from the outside. I'm not in the administration this time. This was a promise that has not been effectuated. So I am calling on all patriotic people within the government to get this out in a way that, again, protects victims. There is no public right to see the genitals of an underage girl. I'm not
Well,
asking for
not just that. The legal ramifications are that you couldn't
precisely.
even possess it or receive it without going to jail yourself. So,
But a righteous person on the inside could do the facial rec for the people who are procuring the underage girls and get a list of those people. And that should be our focus now. And I hope that Pam Bondi proves me wrong and that eventually she does release this. And again, according to Bondi, there's been some back and forth. Bondi's saying that the FBI is going through it. Cash should be up his agents behind every single day until this thing's done. He should be wanting to get this out of the FBI back to the DOJ, even assuming his motives aren't proper.
well,
Because right now the DOJ is pointing at the FBI. So the FBI should say, no. We processed all this. We gave you the 6,500 videos. Now it's on you to go through them.
what do you make of the affirmation on Bartiromo between Patel and Bongino that Epstein did himself in and no further questions? When I hear you talking, I can almost sort of hear now, not the Hillary Clinton, what difference does it make at this point? But at this point, whether he did it, whether he killed himself, whether someone killed him, whether they gave him the sheets to hang himself and turned a blind eye, that all almost is an irrelevant detail to the video compromat that they have. So I can sort of see that angle. But then the other question is, do they even have the video compromat anymore? It's like, it's one thing that Cash and Bongino are in there now reviewing the file now. Who put that file together in the first place? Because it wasn't an FBI that we could trust as far as we could throw them.
All great points. I detest Hillary, so I reject any comparison to her. I do think it makes a difference in that if he was killed, and I believe he was, through negligence or active participation.
Or like giving him the sheets, extra linens, and shutting off the camera so that no one...
making sure the guards were asleep, yes. So I do think it matters. I think Bongino made a mistake by pontificating without showing the primary source material. If you're going to hold that opinion, and Bongino has every right to hold that opinion, it could be dead wrong, but he has the right to hold that opinion. Don't say that on cable and then just say, I've seen it. I'm very important. And by the way, I'm not disputing that he's important. He's the deputy director of the FBI. I'm just saying he should have presented the primary source material for the basis for his opinions. It'd be like us releasing a book saying Hunter Biden is a money launderer, he's a FARA violator, and he's a degenerate. And by the way, we have the laptop, but you're just going to have to trust us. No. We say, no, this is the contents. And above that, we explain how we came to that conclusion. Not opinions. Yeah.
That's it was one thing I say, like, either as a PR, from a PR perspective,
terrible.
It would have been better to say the FBI's position is that the investigation has concluded or shows that.
Yes, and what is prohibiting him from getting the OIG report? Horowitz.
Well, look, I try to think like real crazy. Like, some people are going to say he's not he's not dead, and so he's in witness protection. That's one theory that I don't suppose.
Let's put it this way: the government's released nothing. So just like the Seth Rich murder, this guy from Rolling Stone, big shit lib, Andy Kroll. I've been tearing into him for the last couple months. He wrote this book. It's behind me, called A Death on W Street. It's just out of the frame. But he's writing about a cold case that's never been charged. He said, Andy Kroll wrote this book, A Death on W Street. It's about the Seth Rich murder. And he's like, this has all been debunked. It's all been debunked. Civil cases have been settled. Andy, there's not been a prosecution. For you to say that something is debunked, you at least got to have another theory, right?
Garrett,
yeah.
I totally forgot that I have got to do a radio show with Richard Stewart. I'm an idiot. Okay, no, we will. I'm such an idiot. I'm gonna try to pull this up, and we're gonna have to do this live, like really live. Garrett, I'm sorry. Is it gonna be even too late? Let me see if I can do this, Garrett. We'll do this again in a bit for sure. I absolutely forgot about this.
God bless you. Take care.
Okay, man. Take care. See you soon.